I trusted my daughter-in-law. I defended my son. But when the truth finally surfaced, it wasn't just lies. It was manipulation, money, and a secret that almost destroyed him.
Perfect. So you have your own income. That changes everything. It means you can live independently if you decide not to go back to that house. The idea hit me like a lightning bolt. Live alone? At 67 years old? After a lifetime of taking care of others? Mr. Mendez, I don't know if I can. Carol, he interrupted me with a firm but kind voice. What do you want? Really, in the bottom of your heart? What do you want? I fell silent. What did I want? I wanted my son to apologize to me. I wanted him to treat me with the respect I deserved. I wanted to get my house back, my space, my dignity. But more than anything, I wanted them to understand that I was not a burden. I was not an old piece of furniture that could be thrown away. I was not a nuisance to be gotten rid of. I was Carol Rodriguez, Salazar's widow, a woman who had worked for 40 years without a break, a mother who had raised 3 children alone after being widowed, a woman who deserved respect. I want justice, I said finally. I want them to learn that you can't treat people like that, especially your own mother. Mr. Mendez nodded. Then we're going to give you exactly that. But Carol, I need you to be prepared. This is going to hurt. There will be tears, screams, pleading. Robert is going to try to make you feel guilty. Danielle is going to make up stories. They're going to say you're a bad mother, that you're selfish, that you're crazy. They already say all of that to me, I whispered. But now it's going to be worse. Because now you're fighting back. And when you fight back, people show their true colors. I took a deep breath. I'm ready. Are you sure? I thought of my mother's furniture, sold like trash. I thought of the missing money. I thought of the damp, dark utility room. I thought of the door slammed in my face. Yes, I said with a firm voice. I'm sure. Then let's begin. I left Mr. Mendez's office 3 hours later. In my bag, I carried new documents, changed passwords, a detailed action plan, and something more important. I carried hope. I walked through the downtown streets with a firm step. I bought myself a coffee and a sweet roll at a bakery. I sat on a park bench and ate peacefully, watching people pass by. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled. Because they thought they had defeated me. They thought they had broken me. They thought I was going to bow my head and accept my fate as an old, invisible woman. But they were very, very wrong. I was not a defeated woman. I was a woman preparing for war, and they had no idea what was coming for them. Robert and Danielle were about to get the surprise of their lives, and I was going to be there to see it all. I returned to the house around 6 o'clock in the evening. I was carrying 3 grocery bags. I had bought what I needed to prepare food in the utility room. A small electric grill, disposable plates, a small pot, some basic groceries. If they wanted me to live like a tenant, I would do so, but with dignity. When I entered, I heard voices in the living room. Many voices. I peeked in carefully. Danielle was there, dressed up as if for a magazine. She was wearing a pale pink dress that must have cost thousands of dollars. Next to her were her parents. Mr. Armstrong, a burly man with a moustache and an air of importance, and Miss Beatrice, a thin, elegant woman who always looked at me as if I were something stuck to her shoe. Robert was also there, dressed in a shirt and dress pants, uncomfortable, pulling at his collar as if it were choking him. "Mom!" Danielle exclaimed when she saw me with that sing-song, fake voice. "So glad you're here. I prepared a family dinner. My parents wanted to better understand our situation." "Our situation?" as if it were a problem that needed to be solved. "Good evening," I greeted briefly, trying to pass towards the utility room. "Oh, no, no, no." Danielle approached me, taking my arm firmly. "I've already prepared everything. It would be rude if you didn't join us. Besides, we need to talk about some important things." I had no choice. I sat at the dining room table. My table. The one I had bought at an antique market 15 years ago. Danielle served dinner with a perfect smile. Chipotle-style chicken, red rice, salad. Everything looked delicious. Everything smelled like home. But the atmosphere was as tense as a guitar string about to snap. "Ms. Carroll," Mr. Armstrong began, wiping his mouth with a napkin, "my daughter has told me there have been some misunderstandings lately." "Misunderstandings?" I repeated, measuring each word. "Yes, well," Ms. Beatrice intervened with a sharp voice. "Danielle tells me you feel displaced. But you have to understand, Ms. Carroll, that young people need their space, especially now with the baby on the way." I gripped my silverware tightly. "I understand perfectly the need for space," I said calmly. "What I don't understand is why my belongings were thrown on the lawn without asking me." "Oh, Mom, let's get over that already." Danielle made a dramatic gesture with her hand. "It was a simple miscommunication. I already apologized." A lie. She had never apologized. "And about the room," Mr. Armstrong continued. "Well, I think it's very generous of Robert and Danielle to have given you a space. There are many people your age who don't even have that." People my age. As if I were a burden, a nuisance, a beggar grateful for crumbs. Robert said nothing, just ate in silence, his gaze fixed on his plate. "Besides," Ms. Beatrice added, "at your age you should be thinking about, well, about making things easier for everyone. There are very nice retirement homes with nurses, activities, people your age. Wouldn't that be more comfortable?" There it was, the real reason for this dinner. They wanted to convince me to go to a nursing home. I looked at Robert. My son still didn't look up. "Robert," I said in a firm voice, "what do you think about this?" He finally looked up. His eyes were tired, empty. "Mom, I just want everyone to be okay, for there to be peace." "Peace?" I repeated. "You're asking me for peace while you're planning to send me to a nursing home?" "It's not a nursing home, Mum," Danielle intervened quickly. "They're luxury retirement communities, with gardens, with—" "I'm not interested," I interrupted her. Silence fell over the table like a tombstone. Mr. Armstrong cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Ms. Carroll, I understand this is difficult for you, but you have to be realistic. Robert and Danielle are building their family. And you, well, you've completed your cycle. You've raised your children. Now it's time for them to live their lives." Every word was a slap, but the worst was yet to come. "And on the economic issue, Ms., Beatrice continued, in a tone of someone discussing business. Danielle mentioned there were some confusions with the bank accounts." There it was, the real reason for the dinner. They had realized they could no longer withdraw money. "There were no confusions," I said in a clear voice. "I simply changed the passwords to my accounts, as I should have done from the beginning." Danielle dropped her silverware with a theatrical crash. "You see, Robert? I told you your mother was acting strangely. Why would you do that, Mum? That money is for the family." "That money is mine," I said, feeling my blood boil. "Money I saved for 40 years. Money you spent without my permission. $45,000 in 8 months. What did you spend it on, Danielle?" Danielle's face turned white, then red, then purple. "How dare you? How dare I what?" I stood up from my chair. Ask for an account of my own money. Ask why you sold my mother's furniture without my authorization. Question why you treated me like trash when I arrived from my sister's funeral. Mum, please. Robert also stood up, his hands outstretched. Don't do this. Not in front of them. Not in front of them? I looked at him incredulously. Robert, they came here to convince me to go to a nursing home. And you're worried about appearances? Mr. Armstrong slammed his fist on the table. Ma'am, you are being very rude. We came as a family to find a civilized solution. Civilized? I let out a bitter laugh. Is throwing my things on the lawn civilized? Is selling my mother's belongings civilized? Is taking $500,000 from me without asking civilized? That money was for the house, Danielle shouted with no sweetness left in her voice. To improve the house, to make it worth more. This house is already worth plenty, I said, pronouncing each word carefully. And it's still mine. The silence was absolute. Danielle blinked in confusion. What? You heard me. This house is in my name. We never did the official deed change. Robert lives here by my permission, a permission I can revoke whenever I want. I saw the colour drain from Danielle's face, how Mr. Armstrong and Miss Beatrice looked at each other in panic, how Robert slumped into his chair with his head in his hands. No, it can't be, Danielle whispered. Robert told me the house was his. He promised me before we got married. Well, he lied to you, I said coldly, or he simply never did the paperwork. The fact is, this house is legally mine. Every brick, every window, every inch. Danielle turned on Robert like a wild animal. Tell me it's not true. Robert, tell me this crazy old woman is lying. Robert slowly lifted his head. There were tears in his eyes. It's true, he whispered. I never finished the paperwork. I thought that it wasn't urgent, that Mum would never… That I would never what? Danielle screamed. That I would never find out. That I would never reclaim it. You told me this house was yours. I married you because you said you had assets. And there it was, the naked, raw truth. Danielle hadn't married my son for love. She had married him for the house, for my house. Miss Beatrice stood up indignantly. This is unacceptable. Armstrong, we're leaving. I'm not going to stay here and listen to these accusations. They're not accusations, I said calmly. They're facts, and I have documents to prove everything. Mr. Armstrong pointed his finger at me. You are a bad mother. A real mother wouldn't do this to her son. Those words hurt more than I could admit, but I wasn't going to let them hurt me anymore. A real mother teaches her children to respect, to value, to be honest. I did all of that. If Robert didn't learn, it's not my fault. It's his. I turned and walked towards the utility room. Behind me, I heard chaos. Danielle crying hysterically, Miss Beatrice screaming insults, Mr. Armstrong demanding explanations, Robert trying to calm everyone down. I closed the door to the room and leaned against it, trembling. It had been the toughest confrontation of my life, but also the most necessary. And it was just the beginning. That night, around 11, I heard violent banging on the room door. Mum, open up. We need to talk. It was Robert. I didn't open it. Mum, please. Danielle is very upset. The doctor said she can't get stressed because of the baby. I still didn't open it. What do you want me to do? Beg for your forgiveness on my knees? Cry? Tell me what you want and I'll do it, but please don't take the house from us. I threw the door open. Robert was a mess. His hair dishevelled, his eyes red, his shirt wrinkled, and for the first time I felt no pity, I felt disappointment. Robert, I said in a calm voice, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to listen carefully. I never wanted to take anything from you. I gave you this house out of love. I gave you my money out of generosity. I gave you my space for family. I know, Mum. I know, But you treated me like trash. You humiliated me, you stole from me, you lied to me. And when I came back broken from my sister's funeral, you threw me out on the street. It was Danielle's mistake. I didn't know that. You knew. I raised my voice. You knew, and you did nothing. You closed the door in my face. You told me she was your priority. You told me to understand. It's just, she's my wife, Mum. I have to support her. And what am I? Trash? A burden to be gotten rid of? Robert fell to his knees in front of me. Forgive me, he sobbed. Forgive me, Mum. I was a coward. I was a bad son. But I'm begging you, don't leave us on the street. I looked at him there, kneeling, crying, and something inside me broke. But not from pain, from clarity. This wasn't my little boy anymore. This was a man who had made his choice, and he had to live with the consequences of his choices. I'm not going to leave you on the street, I said finally. But things are going to change, drastically. Tomorrow you're coming with me to Mr. Mendez's office, and we are going to sign a contract with clear rules. Whatever you say, Mum. Whatever you say. And Danielle is going to pay back every dollar she spent of my money. Either she pays it or you pay it. But it will be paid. Robert nodded desperately. Yes, yes, whatever. Now go. I'm tired. He got up slowly. Before he left, he looked at me with the eyes of a beaten puppy. Do you hate me, Mum? The question took me by surprise. No, Robert, I said sadly. I don't hate you, but I don't recognize you either. The son I raised would never have done this to me. I closed the door, and for the first time in days, I slept soundly because I knew I had won the first battle. But the war was just beginning. The next morning, Robert and I went to the lawyer's office. And what happened there changed everything forever. Robert arrived on time at Mr. Mendez's office. But he wasn't alone. Danielle came with him, clinging to his arm like a tick. She wore dark glasses that covered half her face and held a tissue in her hand, ready for drama. When they saw me sitting in the waiting room, Danielle stopped short. She's coming, she whispered to Robert, though loud enough for me to hear. It's her lawyer's office, Danielle, Robert replied with a tired voice. Mr. Mendez received us in his office. His face was professional, serious, impenetrable. Good morning, Mrs. Carroll, Mr. Robert, Mrs. Danielle. Please have a seat. We sat down. Danielle couldn't stop looking around suspiciously, like a caged animal looking for an exit. All right, the lawyer began. I've called you here because there are legal matters we need to resolve formally. First of all, let's clarify the situation of the property. He placed a copy of the house deed on the desk. As you can see here, the house located at 247 Jacaranda Street is registered 100% in the name of Mrs. Carol Rodriguez, Salazar's widow. There is no other owner. Danielle snatched off her glasses. That's impossible. Robert told me that. What Robert told you is irrelevant, the lawyer interrupted her with a sharp tone. The legal facts are these. Mrs. Carroll is the sole owner. You live there by verbal permission, which in legal terms is called a tenancy at will. But I'm his daughter-in-law. It's my house too, Danielle insisted, her voice getting higher. No, ma'am, it is not. Not 1 inch of that property is in your name. I saw Danielle turn pale, her hands clutching the tissue until her knuckles turned white. Is this true? Robert asked in a trembling voice. My son lowered his head. Yes. And when were you planning on telling me? I thought we would sort out the paperwork after the wedding, but with work and... I don't care about your excuses, Danielle shouted, jumping to her feet. You told me you owned a house. You promised me. Danielle, calm down, please. Think about the baby, Robert pleaded. The baby, she scoffed. Right. The baby who's going to be born in a house that isn't even yours. Mr. Mendez tapped the desk gently. Ma'am, please sit down. There are more matters to discuss. Danielle slumped back into the chair, breathing heavily. Second matter, the lawyer continued. The unauthorized withdrawals from Mrs. Carroll's bank accounts. He placed the bank statements I had given him on the desk. In the last 8 months, a total of $45,300 has been taken from these accounts. Mrs. Carroll never authorized these transactions. I didn't take that money, Robert defended himself immediately. The transfers were made with the card that is in your name, said the lawyer. That makes you legally responsible. But it was Danielle who used the card. I lent it to her because she said she needed... What? Danielle stared at him with wide eyes. Now you're going to blame me? You were the one who bought the new furniture, who organized the trip to Miami, who spent $6,000 on clothes. Because you told me we had money, that your mum had given you all that. I said she lent it to us, not that she gave it to you. Watching them fight like this should have given me satisfaction, but it only brought me sadness. Enough, I said in a firm voice. They both fell silent immediately. I don't care who spent the money. You are both responsible, and that money will be returned. All of it, down to the last dollar. Mum, we don't have $45,000, Robert said desperately. My salary barely covers. Then you will pay it in installments, with interest. The lawyer will draw up a payment plan. Interest? Danielle let out a hysterical laugh. You're going to charge your own son interest? I'm going to charge interest to the person who stole my money, yes. It's not theft. It's family money. It was my retirement money, I said, feeling my voice break. Money I earned cleaning bathrooms and offices for 40 years. Money I was going to use for my medical expenses when I got older, and you spent it on trips and clothes. Danielle opened her mouth to reply, but no words came out. There is one more issue, Mr. Mendez continued. The antique furniture that was sold without authorization. According to Mrs. Carroll, they were pieces over 70 years old, a family heirloom. How much did you sell them for? Absolute silence. How much? I repeated. Robert swallowed hard. $1,500. I felt the world stop. $1,500? I whispered. You sold my mother's furniture, hand-carved mahogany pieces, furniture that was worth over $10,000, for $1,500? The buyer said they were very old, that they needed restoration, Robert mumbled. Because they were antiques, I exploded, getting up from my chair. That's why they were worth so much. That furniture was the last inheritance I had left from my mother. Mum, what does it matter anymore? Danielle said with annoyance. They were just old furniture. Something inside me snapped, but not from sadness, from fury. I approached Danielle slowly. She leaned back in her chair, scared. Just old furniture? I said in a dangerously low voice. Just old furniture? My grandmother brought that furniture from Philadelphia on a freight truck in 1952. My mother polished it every Sunday after church. I taught Robert to read at that table. We had family dinners there for 30 years. I didn't know, Danielle stammered. You didn't know because you never asked, because to you, anything that isn't new and expensive is worthless, just like me. An old woman who is useless, a burden to be gotten rid of. That's not true. No. I took out my cell phone and showed them the pictures I had taken the day I arrived from the funeral. Look at this. Look. My things thrown on the lawn, my photos, my clothes, the memories of my dead husband, all thrown out like trash. Danielle looked at the photos and turned pale. I thought they were things you didn't use anymore. And that's why you threw them out without asking me, without waiting for me to come back from my sister's funeral. We needed space for the baby. You had the whole house, I shouted, a 2-story house with 4 bedrooms. Why did you need my room? Why did you need to humiliate me? Danielle covered her face with her hands and began to cry, but it didn't move me anymore. I had seen too much. I had suffered too much. Mr. Mendez, I said, turning to him, I want them out of my house. I want to start the eviction process. No, Robert shouted, jumping up. Mum, please, we can't leave. We have nowhere to go. Danielle is pregnant. You should have thought of that before you treated me the way you did. Mrs. Carroll, the lawyer intervened, legally I can start the eviction today. They have to vacate in 30 days. That leaves us on the street, Danielle sobbed. With a baby on the way. What kind of grandmother are you? Those words hit me like a punch. What kind of grandmother was I? One who had lost everything. One who had been betrayed. One who was tired of being stepped on. But then I looked at Danielle. I really looked at her. And I saw genuine fear in her eyes. I saw a young, stupid woman who had made terrible mistakes, but who was pregnant, who was going to bring my grandchild into the world. I sighed deeply. I'm not going to leave you on the street, I said finally. But this is what's going to happen. You are going to sign a formal lease agreement. You are going to pay $1,200 a month in rent. You are going to pay me back the $45,000 in payments of $1,000 a month for 4 years. And if you miss a single month, I will evict you without hesitation. $1,200 in rent plus $1,000 in debt. That's $2,200 a month, Robert exclaimed. We won't be able to afford it. Then Danielle will have to get a job, like the rest of the world. I'm pregnant. And I worked until my 8th month of pregnancy with Robert, cleaning floors on my knees, so don't give me any excuses. Danielle looked at me with pure hatred. You'll regret this, she hissed. When your grandchild is born, you won't meet him. We won't let you near him. You'll die alone and bitter. Her words hurt, but they weren't going to control me anymore. If that's my cross to bear, I'll bear it, I replied. But I will never be a slave in my own house again, Mr. Mendez prepared the documents right there. Robert signed them with trembling hands. Danielle refused to sign at first, but Robert forced her to. When we left the office, they drove away in their car without saying a word to me. I stood on the sidewalk, breathing the fresh morning air. I had won, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty, shattered, because I had gotten my house back, but I had lost my son, and I didn't know if I could ever forgive myself for that. But the story doesn't end there, because 3 days later, something happened that changed everything again, and this time it was worse than I ever imagined. 3 days after signing the contract, I woke up in the utility room with a pain in my chest that wasn't normal. It wasn't sadness. It was something physical, real, terrifying. A pressure squeezing me as if someone were wringing my heart with their hands. I tried to get out of bed, but my legs wouldn't respond. I couldn't get air into my lungs. The room started to spin. Help, I whispered, but my voice barely came out. I tried to bang on the wall for someone to hear me. Once. Twice. On the 3rd try, my arm fell limp. Everything went black. I woke up in a hospital bed. The fluorescent lights hurt my eyes. There was a constant beeping from a machine beside me. I felt a needle in my arm, connected to an IV bag. "She's awake," I heard a woman's voice. A nurse came over to check on me, taking my blood pressure and pulse. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Carroll?" "What? What happened?" I managed to say with a hoarse voice. "You had a minor heart attack. Your neighbor found you unconscious and called an ambulance. You're very lucky to be alive." Miss Lucy, my guardian angel. "How long?" "You've been here for 8 hours. We've already notified your family. 2 of your children are outside. They arrived an hour ago from Denver and Austin." "2 children? Robert?" I asked. The nurse hesitated for a moment. "Your son Robert was notified 7 hours ago. He hasn't come." Those words hurt more than the heart attack. My son, the one who lived 20 minutes from the hospital, hadn't come. But my other children, Marianne and George, who lived hundreds of miles away, had dropped everything to get here. "I want to see them," I said. "Of course. Just for a moment, okay? The doctor says you should avoid strong emotions." The nurse left, and seconds later they burst in like hurricanes. Marianne, my middle child, 38 years old, a lawyer, always so serious and organized. But now her eyes were red and swollen from crying. George, my youngest son, 35 years old, an engineer like Robert, but with a completely different heart. His hair was messy and his shirt was buttoned wrong, as if he had dressed in a hurry. "Mom!" Marianne ran to me and hugged me carefully, as if I were made of glass. "Thank God. We thought we were going to lose you." George took my free hand and squeezed it tightly. "What happened, Mum?" "Miss Lucy called us crying, saying she found you passed out on the floor. Why didn't you tell us you were sick?" "I didn't want to worry you," I whispered. "Worry us?" Marianne wiped away her tears angrily. "You almost died, Mum. The doctor says it was a miracle Miss Lucy found you when she did. 10 more minutes and—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. "But we don't understand," George said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "The doctor says this was caused by extreme stress. What's going on? Why so much stress?" I looked at both of them. My children, so different from Robert in so many ways. And I told them everything. I told them about my arrival from the funeral, my things thrown on the lawn, the utility room, Danielle, the missing money, the sold furniture. Everything. As I spoke, I watched my children's expressions change, from concern to disbelief, from disbelief to horror, from horror to absolute fury. "What?" Marianne shouted, jumping up. "Robert did what? I'm going to kill him." George stood up too. "I'm going to go right now, and I'm going to—" "George, no." I stopped him with what little strength I had. "It's already been handled. We've signed a contract with Mr. Mendez." "Mr. Mendez knows about this?" Marianne asked. "Yes. He's helping me." Marianne immediately took out her cell phone. "I'm calling Robert right now." "Wait." I tried to stop her, but she was already dialing. We waited. 1, 2, 3 rings. Voicemail. Marianne called again. Voicemail again. "He's rejecting my calls," she said in a dangerous voice. "That damned coward is rejecting my calls." George tried too. Same result. "Mum," Marianne said, putting her phone away with jerky movements. "When you get out of here, you're coming with me to Denver." "I can't." "Yes, you can. And you will. I'm not going to let you continue living in those conditions." "I don't live in the utility room anymore. I rented a small apartment with the money from the rent of the building in the old factory district. What building? George asked, confused. One I inherited from your father. We've been renting it out for years. You didn't know because I always saved that money for emergencies. My children looked at each other. Mum, George said slowly, how many more secrets do you have? They're not secrets. They're precautions. You learn to take care of yourself when you're a widow. Marianne sat down next to me again, taking my hand in both of hers. Mum, listen to me carefully. Robert has no right to treat you like this. I don't care if he's my brother. What he did is unforgivable. He's married. He has to choose his wife. Choosing his wife doesn't mean humiliating his mother, George exploded. I'm married, Mum. I have 2 kids, and Andrea would never ask me to treat you like that. Never. And if she did, he continued without hesitation, then she wouldn't be the woman I want to be with. A good wife doesn't make you choose between her and your family. A good wife integrates, she doesn't disintegrate. Those words made me cry, because George was right. A good partner doesn't force you to abandon your own. Mum, Marianne said in a firm voice, I need you to understand something. You gave us everything. You worked until you broke so we could study. You paid for our college. You helped us when we needed it. Now it's our turn to take care of you. I don't want to be a burden. You are not a burden, Marianne shouted. You are our mother. And the fact that you think you could be a burden breaks my heart. George came over and hugged both of us. Mum, when you get out of here, we're going to fix everything. I'm going to talk to Robert personally. And if he doesn't change his ways, if he doesn't apologize on his knees, then I will disown him as my brother too. I don't want you to fight because of me. It's not because of you, Mum. It's about what's right. And what Robert did is wrong. At that moment, the doctor came in, an older man with glasses and a serious expression. Salazar family, I need to talk to you about Mrs. Carroll's condition. We all tensed up. The minor heart attack was caused by acute and prolonged stress. Your mother's blood pressure was at dangerous levels. If we don't make drastic changes to her lifestyle, the next one won't be a minor one. It will be a full-blown heart attack, and likely fatal. The words fell like stones. What does she need? Marianne asked immediately. First, completely eliminate the sources of stress. Second, daily medication to control her blood pressure. Third, psychological therapy, because the damage is not just physical, it's also emotional. And fourth, a real support network. Family that takes care of her, not destroys her. George and Marianne nodded. She'll have it all, George said. You have my word. The doctor looked directly at me. Mrs. Carroll, what is causing you the most stress right now? The question took me by surprise. I thought of Robert, of Danielle, of the utility room, of the sold furniture, of the humiliation. My eldest son, I said finally, and the situation with him. Then, by medical prescription, I recommend that you temporarily cut contact with that situation. For at least 3 months. You need to heal. And you can't heal if you keep getting wounded. Those words were like a release. A doctor was giving me permission to step away, to take care of myself, to set boundaries, without guilt. I'll do it, I said. Marianne squeezed my hand, and we will be with you every step of the way. I left the hospital 2 days later. Marianne stayed with me in a nearby hotel. George had to go back to Austin for work, but he called 3 times a day. Robert never showed up. Not a call, not a message, nothing. But I wasn't expecting anything from him anymore. because I had discovered something important in that hospital bed. I had been looking for love in the wrong place. Robert had shown who he was, and I had to accept it. But Marianne and George, they showed me I wasn't alone, that I still had family, real family. A week later, I was sitting in the small apartment I had rented with the rent money. It was a modest place, one room, a small kitchen, a full bathroom. But it was mine, clean, tidy, peaceful. Marianne helped me decorate it. We bought plants, new curtains, a comfortable rocking chair for reading. And for the first time in months, I felt at home. I was having coffee at the small table by the window when my cell phone rang, an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. Hello? Mrs. Carroll? This is Mr. Mendez. Mr. Mendez, good morning. I have some news. Robert just made the first payment. $2,200, $1,200 for rent, and $1,000 for the debt. I remained silent, processing. Really? Yes. And there's something else. Your daughter-in-law Danielle got a job in a department store, a perfume saleswoman. I couldn't help but smile a little. Danielle, who had never worked a day in her life, now selling perfume. Life has strange ways of teaching lessons. Thanks for letting me know, Mr. Mendez. There's something else, Carol. Robert called the office. He asked about you. He says that he needs to talk to you. I'm not ready for that, I said immediately. I understand. I just wanted you to know. I hung up and stared out the window. Outside, life went on. People walking, children playing, street vendors shouting their wares. And there I was, alive, breathing, healing. I had lost a lot. But I had also gained something priceless. I had won my dignity back, and no one, ever again, was going to take it from me. But Robert wasn't going to give up so easily. And what he did next forced me to make the most difficult decision of my life. 2 weeks after leaving the hospital, I was watering the plants on my small balcony when I heard knocking at the door. Loud, desperate, insistent. Mom! Mom! Please, I know you're in there. It was Robert. I froze, the watering can still in my hand. Mom, we have to talk. Please, it's important. I didn't want to open it. The doctor had told me to avoid stress. Marianne had made me promise not to see Robert until I was stronger. But he was my son, and as much as he had hurt me, he was still my son. I opened the door just a crack. Robert looked destroyed. He had lost at least 20 pounds. He had deep, dark circles under his eyes. His clothes hung on his body as if they were 2 sizes too big. He looked like a ghost of himself. What do you want, Robert? I asked in a neutral voice. I need to talk to you. Please. 5 minutes. The doctor forbade me from stressful situations. I know. Miss Lucy told me. Mum, I didn't know you were so sick. If you had known, you were notified 7 hours before your siblings, and you didn't come. Those words hit him like a slap. I saw his eyes fill with tears. Danielle wouldn't let me go. She said it was a trick of yours to manipulate me, that you wanted to play the victim. I believed her. And by the time I realized my mistake, you had already left the hospital and I didn't know where you were. Marianne and George found me without a problem. Because they are better children than me, he said with a broken voice. Mum, please, just let me in for 5 minutes. I need to tell you something important. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. Robert entered and looked around the small apartment. I saw shame on his face, pain, regret. It's nice, he said in a low voice. Small, but cozy. It's what I can afford with the rent from your father's building. He sat on the sofa carefully, as if he were afraid of breaking something. Mum, I came to tell you that you were right about everything. I looked at him suspiciously. Danielle is destroying me, he continued. Ever since we signed the contract and she had to get a job, she's become unbearable. She complains all the time, saying everything is my fault, that I promised her one life and gave her another. And you were right, weren't you? I said without emotion. You promised her a house that wasn't yours. I know. He put his face in his hands. I know, and it was my mistake. A huge mistake. But Mum, I'm trapped. I have a baby on the way. I can't get a divorce now. Is that what you came to tell me? To cry about your marital problems? No, I came to... He took a deep breath. I came to ask for your forgiveness. On my knees, if necessary. For everything. For throwing your things out. For the utility room. For the money. For grandmother's furniture. For slamming the door in your face. For not going to the hospital. For being the worst son in the world. Tears streamed down his cheeks. And I felt nothing. That was the most terrifying part. That my own son was crying in front of me, and I felt no urge to comfort him. Robert, I said slowly, does Danielle know you're here? He shook his head. I slipped out while she was at work. If she finds out, she'll go crazy. Why? Why? Because she's still angry with you. She says you ruined our lives, that you took everything from us. I let out a bitter laugh. I didn't take anything from you. I set boundaries. There's a difference. I know, Mum, but she doesn't see it that way. And how do you see it? Robert looked up at me. I see that I lost my mother for a woman who doesn't even respect me, who yells at me, who blames me for everything, who threatens to take my son away from me if I don't do what she says. Then divorce her, I said simply. I can't. We're expecting a baby. Robert, I was 7 months pregnant with George when your father died. I had to go on alone. If you can work, you can support your child. With or without Danielle. But no buts. Either you stay with her and accept the consequences, or you separate and build a new life. But you can't go on like this, destroying yourself, and you can't come here expecting me to solve your life for you. Robert was silent for a long time. You don't love me anymore, Mum? He asked in a small child's voice. That question broke my heart. I will always love you, Robert. You are my son. I carried you in my womb. I raised you. I taught you to walk, to talk, to read. But I don't trust you anymore, and I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to again. What do I have to do? He pleaded. Tell me what I have to do to earn your trust back. Grow up, I said simply. Stop being a child who expects his mum to solve everything. Make decisions like an adult. Stand up for what's right, even if it's hard. And if I do, if I change, will you forgive me? I don't know, Robert. Honestly, I don't know. He slowly got up from the sofa. He looked older than he was, tired, defeated. Then all I can do is show you with actions, he said. No more words. He walked to the door. Before leaving, he turned one last time. When the baby is born, would you come to meet him? The question caught me off guard. If you truly invite me, if you treat me with respect, if Danielle accepts my presence without drama, then yes, I'll go. Thank you, Mum. And he left. I stood in the middle of the apartment, trembling. Marianne was right. Seeing him had been stressful, but also necessary, because Robert needed to hear the truth, and I needed to tell it to him.
We thought the lies were over, but the final confrontation would uncover everything. The truth, the deception, and a choice that could change our lives forever. Part 3 is The Reckoning. You don't want to miss it.